Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to Black Dragon Gaming this time, and our chats on CR monsters and encounters. And CR, I believe it's 13 and 14 monsters this time, and the encounters in which you can use them. If you want to see the monsters that we highlighted last time on the Planar Crossroads, you can just go over to the Planar Crossroads and find that. Like we usually do, we'll focus on encounters this time, but let's get the announcements out of the way first. So, if you want to, first off, disclaimer. This is an adult podcast, and some of those adults use adult language. Parental discretion is advised.
Thanks, Dad.
The Pathfather has spoken. All right. With that disclaimer out of the way, the Patreons for both channels are live. If you want to support them, they are found over on Patreon under both of our respective titles. So the Planar Crossroads, Black Dragon Gaming, all you got to do, go to the Patreon for those, and we are there. There are options for different tiers, so if you like a certain tier better than another, go ahead and subscribe to that tier. Or, I don't know, no, become a patron at that tier. That's what they would say. This current video, like I said, is going to be our talk about CR 13 and 14 monsters and using them in encounters. We're each going to highlight one from each tier. The next subscriber appreciation over on the Planar Crossroads is going to be at 200. So if you're interested in playing a game with Colin, will be running. He will be running a fun game, very interesting fun game that he's come up with. But to find out what it is, you're just going to have to get us up to 200 subscribers. So we're on our way. It was like 100 is like a cap that you got to break, and then you get a little each week or something like that. 1 or 2 new people come in. So it's been going good. As far as this month's giveaway on the Planar Crossroads, we're going to be giving away a Vivek statuette, a vinyl pop statuette. So you can come on over to there. It is for subscribers of the giant tier or higher. So if you are not subscribers, patrons of the giant tier or higher. So if you are that at the Planar Crossroads, then there you go. Tommy, you got any stuff before we start?
Oh, I do. We are putting this out on Saturday, so that means we are 4 days in to the next giveaway at Black Dragon Gaming. I'm really nervous. We're recording this on a Monday, and I know I'm kind of like just running off a cliff and saying, hey, give me some money and we'll do a thing. And I'm hoping that when I swan dive over that cliff, I'm not going to break my neck. But when we get to 424 subscribers, which is, I think, something we can do handily. We were at 362 yesterday when I recorded. Today we're at 375. So I think we'll make it just fine. But if my Patreon can get up to around $150 a month, give or take, we will run the Doomsday Dawn adventure for the Pathfinder 2nd Edition playtest for you and 5 or 6 of your friends. We'll see how many people enter, and hey, if my Patreon can get even higher, I will definitely consider running 2 or 3 groups running 2 or 3 groups through the adventure. All you have to do to enter is get us to $150 on Patreon. Be subscribed. If you're subscribed and we get there, as of right now, you are entered in the giveaway. Just comment on the video, which went live 4 days ago, / goes live tomorrow. It's awkward. With your interest, and if you support us on Patreon, that's automatically one more entry. If you support us, if you're feeling particularly generous / ludicrous, if you support us at the $90 or above tier, that is an automatic win because we're pretty much all playing on your backs at that point. So yeah, I'm super stoked to bring it to you guys. I'm super stoked to push into the next tier of being a YouTuber, I suppose. And yeah, definitely go check out that video. I'll throw a link for it in the description. But that's all I have, if you want to get down to business, Adam.
All right. Well, this is your channel, so you get to run it today.
I do, and I'll go first. I'll preface what I'm saying by saying what Adam said. We should definitely like if you like these, go check out what we're doing on Inn of Planar Crossroads as well, because like you're missing 50% of the discussion. We highlight the monsters over there first, and then we come over here and we talk about the encounters. So there's not a whole lot of like background information for the monsters in said encounters, unless like you're like me and have an encyclopedic knowledge of Pathfinder, or we just happen to like stumble on your favorites. However, today I'm going to do a little bit of like in the encounter design, I'm going to cheat a little bit because, and I've said this forever and ever, I'll say it one more time, the CRs are arbitrary, and at this point, at CR 13, at CR 14, oh, Joe's coming, cool. The like action economy is the true CR in Pathfinder, and so is like party makeup. So if you come across a monster who's CR 13 and you really like them, and you put them against a party of like 4 or 5 people who may or may not have leadership, may or may not have eidolons, animal companions, may or may not summon things, or like God forbid just hold person and then coup de grace, the encounter ends really really fast. So it's really important in your encounters to never forget the important role of the lackey, and that's my like the point I'm driving here today. There's two really good ways to use lackeys. I'll talk about the first one now for my CR 13 monster, my favoriteest of animal companions, the Warcat of Roll. Uh, it won't really have lackeys because it's just a giant cat that's not smart enough. But hey, Joe, I think.
Hello. Yeah, it's me.
But they're more so they exist to just like eat up the party's resources. They're a little like I'm probably biased because I go through these encounters on Saturdays a lot, but the Warcat of Roll is it's a favored war mount of the orcs of the Hold of Belkzen in Pathfinder. So what you want to do is like whether or not the Warcat has someone, or I mean its size category huge, so it could have like 5 summons or a Howdah carrying like a ballista and 4 summons like riding into battle on it. You want to make sure first the party comes into contact with just a lot of garbage level to mid level. In this case, we will use orcs, but for your monster, it's whatever thematically. The idea here is just to get a little bit of damage in, but mostly to like bait your party into using their resources, especially the spellcasters. It's going to be really easy, and I'm super guilty of this, but like if there are on the grid, if I can count out a 20 by 20 square that's all bad guys, there's a little voice in the back of my head that's ooh, fireball, go, 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 fireball. And so I will do so. And then that's a 3rd level spell that I don't have for when it counts. The same is true for like paladins with Smite Evil, everyone and everything. In Pathfinder has some kind of pool that they expend to do stuff. War priests and magi, I've covered them recently a lot on this channel, and they can Nova. And what I mean by Nova is use all their resources in like 1 or 2 fights and then be just dumb for the rest of the day. They can Nova really hard. And when we throw all these, again, low to mid level monsters at the party, it makes it really easy for them to do so. And sometimes it's not even like an issue of baiting them, it's an issue of like they have to do it to function, they have to do it to survive. In addition to like the Warcat of Roll being one of my favorite monsters, orcs, and we talked about orcs a million years ago, are really really powerful, even just at CR 1/2. Of course by CR 13 that's probably like they're just gonna get kicked in the face to death. But and I'm a real big fan, and so is Joe, because this is our Saturdays basically. The NPC Codex and the Monster Codex has a lot of really good, just like they're not showstoppers, but they're great mooks. So if you grab, I like to say 2 or 3 for every person in the party, sometimes more. I'm also a pretty big fan of the troop template, although it's not an exact science, and I'm not in love with it, but for what it is, it works. Just like 2 or 3 guys or 2 to 3 troops for each player, and just throw them mindlessly at the players. You know they're going to die. That's totally fine. And then eventually, as they're working through, as the wizard has fireballed their last fireball, the paladin has smote his last evil person. Then, as they make their way further into, say, like an orc camp, for example, they come across a war cat that's broke out of its cage and is just like frenzying into everything. Which, I mean, that might, and probably, like, if we're playing it to the hilt, probably killed some people that were on your side. There's probably some dead orcs, but that's, again, they've served their purpose. And this guy still has an armor class. I'm bringing up the page right now because I'm terrible, but an armor class that's through the roof before, yeah, okay, it's a 28 armor class. That's before armor. That's before even just like jam a ring of protection on this thing's tail if you must. There's ways to do it. It's got a climb speed. It's fast. It has pounce and rend and trample. It has cleave on it. It's set up. The idea, though, is just like eat the party's resources, then sick this thing on it. Because if you sick this thing first, especially like a war cat in particular, is just an animal. So depending on what's in the party, depending on anything from like the druid using I think hold animal is a spell, or like charm animal, or really any spell at all that requires a will save, we just have a +7. So we fail most of those. But if the caster is out of resources, we don't have to worry about it. We just eat people. My CR14, the Dance Macabre from way back in Pathfinder's history, so far back that this is still 3.5. It's the same idea, but this is not necessarily the war of attrition so much as like and again, I'm very biased because I've gone through these all really recently. First rule of Pathfinder: if you're making an encounter, no matter what level, no matter what character, no matter what class, no matter what race, shadows are bad for everyone. Shadows can swim through the floor and then attack up through the floor with, like, they never expose themselves, short of like a player readying an action to swing at the hand to like stop it from like grabbing their ankle, is real bad. Though even just like 1d6 points of strength damage adds up really, really fast, even on somebody who's coming in. Like, for example, a week ago, to the Pathfinder schedule's been a little wonky lately, but I'm playing a Slayer, and that Slayer has 24 strength, and the Slayer lost all of its strength in like 2 rounds of combat versus Shadows, and there's nothing else more threatening at the moment in that particular scene than Shadows. Shadows will get you there, and if you want to, any given stereotypical, and I'm throwing the air quotes hard, boss fight, like in a video game that you want to do, again, 2 or 3 or 4 shadows. 2 or 3 or 4 shadows per player will probably result in some very, very dead players and some more shadows. But even like a shadow per player or 2 shadows per player is enough to like, they're definitely going to have something else on their mind, even if it's just essentially like an environmental hazard at this point. The mooks can almost do more damage than the Dance Macabre itself. Of course, the Dance Macabre is still sweet. It drains your con. It forces you to dance, and as you're dancing, you take more con drain, so that's more of your physical stats getting super messed up. What else do you have, buddy? I forget. You have a lot of cool stuff, though. It has an incorporeal scythe, so it's going to hit, I think, incorporeal weapons target touch. I'm like 90% sure. I don't use ghosts a lot.
Most ghost attack, it is against touch AC most of the time, unless I say otherwise.
Yeah, well, thank you, Donald. Yeah, this thing will, just like the shadows, it's hitting touch, it's doing con drain, and meanwhile, all these shadows are draining strength. It's like, again, this fight can get really gnarly really fast. And on its own, the Dance Macabre has an SR of 30, which is ridiculous at CR14. So that's, if we're level 14, I don't think we can beat that. Can we? Yeah, no, we can.
Yes. So a level 14 caster, you get the spell penetration feat. You get the spell penetration feat, and then any additional class features, spell bonuses. As long as you get over, say, a 15 or more on a D20, you can easily beat a SR 30 easily enough, as long as you know what to prepare properly for a caster with the proper feats.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
but that's
yeah, for sure.
egregious
That's
amount
all.
of-
All
Go ahead.
feats aside, yeah, for sure. I definitely spell penetration is a thing. Elves are a thing. I totally agree. But if I'm just a level 14 caster, I'm doing quick math.
You would have
So I have to
a
roll a 15 or like a 16 through a 20, I think it is, to get there. So that's a 20% chance of me getting there, which is not a lot. That's also maybe it's just me, but that's a roll I screw up a lot. A lot of times I'll try to add my mod or like D20 plus half my level plus casting modifier over and over again. That's just straight D20 plus caster level before, like Donald is saying, before spell penetration, before being an elf. Before being an elf with spell penetration seems real good. But
there's a spell as well you can cast that's like spell penetration on your next spell.
It would be sure casting. It increases your SR. It increases the chance to beat SR for the next spell plus 5 effectively. So combine that with the spell penetration feat, you're gonna have a good chance to beat it SR next turn for sure.
Chance.
And
Not
then
a good chance. You'll have a decent chance. You'll go from 16 to 12 to 20.
That's a lot better. And then like CR14 doesn't have access to spell perfection, but spell perfection makes all of the numeric values that target a spell double. So then yeah, that's super good. You will get there. But a lot of players won't, and these guys are still like they are super gnarly. And again, the point I'm trying to drive here is like don't ignore the mooks. Yes, it will make your combats go a little faster or a little slower. Geez, no, it will not make them go faster to add 20 guys in. Oh no. But the alternative to that is like, okay, there's a war cat. I cast this spell that puts it to sleep or paralyzes it or whatever happens, and then somebody just stabs it in the neck and moving on with their day. That's all I have to say. I think I've waxed poetic enough here. I might just run up. Yeah, okay, Adam, you have the floor. I will run up from the bottom.
Okie dokie then. So, I will go up to my CR13. And instead of talking about the Azru Verda like I did last time, I think I touched on what it can do and how I would use it for my Vermin Lord and as a buddy and tutor for him. I'm going to go with I'm not sure how you sound this one out. It's G-H-O-R-A-Z-G-H. Gorazga. And
either way is probably fine.
Yeah. It's a word. It's a word with the Z's and the GH's at the end and all that. It is kind of like a spidery, tentacly thingy. It's with an armored spherical body, numerous tentacular legs, and a multi-eyed visage. This creature is truly hideous, and it's an aberration, neutral evil. As far as what it's got going for it, it's got a respectable AC at this level, 26. It's alright. It's vulnerable to Sonic, but based on the creature's ecology, your PCs are not likely to know that. So these things kind of wander around, and they're called gore weavers. They float like tumorous specters through the deepest, most alien cavities of the lightless underground, preying upon the wretched vermin of those horrid places. They're not stupid. They got a 15 int, and if you remember, if 10 is an average human, then they're half again as smart as a human, as your average peasant.
125 IQ is 15.
So there you go. They ain't dumb.
If we consider 10 to be 100.
There you go. I don't know how they do the averages out, but there we go. I will take Joe's word for it. He's a law student. Or take his word for it.
Yes.
They're disgusting. They really are. These creatures are just nasty. They have something called a blood drain that they use to drain the con, and that happens. They can do that with their grab, I believe. which they have 4 tentacles to do. So they've got a bite, 2 claws, and 4 tentacles. They've got a plus 16, plus 16, plus 14 on those things. That's not too bad for hitting certain ACs. If we're looking at its AC as a comparison, not bad at all. You know, you can hit it 20-25% of the time at least, or more, if you want to kind of go with how I roll anyway. But it's got blood sense, so that basically acts like blind sight for any living creature within 60 feet, so you're not going to hide from it. That includes through invisibility and greater invisibility. And what makes them really, really disgusting is they have this ability called Blood Spray. And every 1d4 rounds, it can unleash a 20-foot cone of blood and eldritch enzymes. And any living creature struck by it has to make a DC 25, which is okay for like fighters and paladins and maybe a monk and a barbarian. But anybody else, that might be a little bit difficult, or be affected by the spell slow. So it can slow down almost everybody that really needs to go fast and to move around, really needs to go and do things. Because if you start to get stuck to certain actions, again, that action economy comes into play. A slowed creature, if they're struck by it a second time, becomes paralyzed. So you could easily start paralyzing the party if you've got 1 or 2 of these. Well, if you've got 2 of these just floating around working together. They have a 40-foot fly speed perfect, so they can just fly around. It's kind of... There would be something that you don't see often, so your characters would not... Your PCs would not likely know about them. And they would be able to have that amount of surprise with them, as well as the thematics of just launching disgusting blood and ichor at their prey. And this ichor allows for chemical communication as well. They can communicate through that and other pheromones with their hive, which means these things don't like to be alone. So if you find one out by itself, it's a good bet that there's, 3 to 9 more of them if you go by the colony record here, or the organization here. Or there could even be a hive of 10 to 40, including 6 brood guards of 17 hit dice and 1 hive lord of 21 HD. So, yeah, nasty things. And I thought that they were quite a good pick, especially with flyby attack and stuff like that. They could do their flyby attack with their blood spray and really coat the party. But that is my CR 13. Now my CR 14 is going to go. We're going to go back to the one that I picked last time. It is the Akaru Zug, and I'll bring up that again for those that want to want to see it, because it doesn't look all that good on the PFSRD because the stat block gets messy. But this one, as far as how to use it, we kind of touched on it last time. It's a construct. It's going to be sitting in there guarding things, holding things, but that crucified figure on it is the thing that powers it, so it needs a fresh one every now and then. Its AC's 29. That's not bad at all at 14. When you're looking at trying to hit stuff, there are things with higher, but this thing has a DR 15 over good. So if you're having a neutral party go in there, or an evil party wanting to take over a certain necromancer's lair or something like that, then that's going to be problematic. How I would use them is, say your group is going to hell, or to the abyss, or something like that, and I would say hell because these things are lawful evil, but most constructs are going to end up being lawful if they have any kind of sentience. This one doesn't, but it is technically considered lawful evil. And it's got some fun stuff going on thematically for it. It's got the Unhallow is part of its abilities, and we talked about this last time. The Unhallow spell, or the Unhallow spell-like quality, lets it have the Unhallow aura that was tied to it at the time of creation, and it gives a little bit, the construct gives a little bit of extra benefits tied to this unholy aura, and that can be things like darkness, detect good, freedom of movement, invisibility purge. So you don't put this in there with your guy, with just by himself. Say there's one of these things and he doesn't move, and you reskin it or something like that to just look like a defiled altar. And when you do, the PCs don't know that it's not an altar. They just, oh, it's like a creepy, weird altar thing, and there's these bunch of mooks around it. Well, say somebody tries to throw out an entangle or a black tentacles to try and catch things. Well, all the dudes that are putting crucifying people up there on that statue, they're all getting benefited from freedom of movement, or if there's more than one in the area, they're getting benefited from other spells that you want to tie to it, like invisibility purge, or things like that. So I find this guy to be a really great set piece, even if you don't use him necessarily as a large challenge. If you have just him in a room with someone of even a lesser CR, he's going to be able to have him be able to be a passive buff for that individual. And that's pretty good. Even if you want to make it a little bit easier on the PCs and say that he's stuck where he is, if the room is a sacrificial room, it could be small enough where there's two on each side, and then there's the guy that they're supposed to be fighting in the middle. And if they stray too far from the middle, they start to get hit by these living structures. So there's lots of fun ways to use this guy, and I just think that he was pretty cool. Pretty cool aesthetically, pretty cool with his abilities, and just fun to fool around with. So those are mine.
Fair enough. I can dig it. I definitely like the idea of crucifying player characters and using them to power constructs throughout hell and stuff. That is super sweet for sure. A lot of these monsters at this CR, and a lot of these monsters, even like rolling back, have been they're a lot of fun to like hear about, because I don't know a lot of them exist, really, to tell you the truth. And I had a guy email me, actually, Adam, about I don't remember the particular name of the Rixasha you talked about a long time ago with the Beholder powers, but he emailed me and he said it was really good, and he asked me some questions about it and stuff. So obviously, here at Black Dragon Gaming / the end of Planar Crossroads, we are capable of picking winners. But I digress. Joe, you have the floor.
Okay, so Tommy had talked about during his encounter description, talking about using mooks, and I believe we've talked about it before, so it'll be a cover again. But for mine really, I think both of them are CR14. Truthfully, I think the Lesser Bandersnatch is kind of cheating at levels at CR13 here. Maybe there are a couple reasons why, but he's got a pretty high, like, everything for himself. So we're going to say that this is both CR14. But these guys, like, they make no sense to throw mooks at. Like, the Bandersnatch is like a hoax creature, IRL, and it's just kind of like this like terrible forest creature. And the Crag Linorm is a chaotic evil Linorm, of course, dragon, so it's going to be a classic dragon attack. But the way that you like get these guys to not be, like Tommy said, like just pin them down with magic and then just slit their throats as they lie on the ground to sleep. is to wear people down, but not with mooks necessarily. Though you could do it with mooks for like the Bandersnatch, having to deal with like I don't know, just like forest animals and shit. Or for the Lenorm having to deal with kobolds or something like that, that would certainly work. You also do the same thing with in the environment, essentially. So for like the Bandersnatch really has the advantage of being able to stealth quite easily in the forest. And we could do things with the forest. My favorite is to use cold to screw people up, make your clerics waste their spells, casting things like endure elements, make them use up spell slots, and like also if they can't deal with it, deal fatigue damage to people in the cold, to basically make it so that like your wizard just passed out. Guess what? Your wizard can't knock out the Bandersnatch, and now the Bandersnatch is going to come out and start beating the bejesus out of it. Also, I mean, the Bandersnatch is immune to paralysis and sleep, so we of course see that, and he is also immune to fear and poison. So, I mean, we really don't have to worry about that, but we still want to slow people down a little bit, because probably what we're going to be doing is we're going to be throwing the Bandersnatch, to be fair, is we're going to throw them like right at CR. So these guys are going to be a matched CR, and it's not going to be what I usually do where they're a bit higher, because I think these guys are a bit higher already. And like I said, I think they are probably CR 14 or 15. So if we make it like it's a CR 13 and we throw it at the party when they are level 13, this should actually be a good one without it being like, oh, this was easy. What was this, on level? So using cold, dealing fatigue damage, there's rules for that. Well, you can find them anywhere. Just look them up online. Use them for something that makes sense. The forest, you can use mooks, of course, in the forest as well. It makes sense. Like I said, I prefer to use cold, but it could also be like a tropical rainforest and have like your guy wearing heavy steel plate mail, just like sweating it out in his own little personal metal sweat lodge. The cold also really makes sense for the Lenorm, which the Lenorm has less. He doesn't have he's not as impressive, I guess, though he is still a dragon, which is just impressive in itself. He has freedom of movement. He's immune to paralysis and sleep, so we don't have to worry about the wizards and their bullshit that they're going to spread around. But really, his thing is going to be like, again, it's going to be the cold and the fact that you're going to have to try and find him in the LLK, really in the Land of Warnham Kings, and they're probably going to have to crawl down into a crag. So we're going to have to be dealing with like people probably falling a good distance, taking fall damage. And if you catch someone when they've fallen, they're prone, and you can probably get them with your good old grapple and start constricting them. So you wrap people up, you take care of them in environmental problems, and you can make it a little bit easier on yourself as a GM for making a challenging encounter without having to be like, but I'm only a level 10 character, why are you making me fight Lenorm? You can get rid of that. Like, make it seem like it's a fair fight, when in reality it's kind of less of a fair fight. Also, I mean, when they eventually defeat it, they're going to have to deal with the Death Curse, which you're definitely going to want to up the DC, I think, because the Death Curse should be something serious. It should really be something where they're like, oh no, DC 22, the Paladin saves. Like, no, it should definitely be higher. You should up his charisma, so that next time it'll be like, now you have to crawl through a crag filled with other crag Lenorms. Like, you've killed the big one, now fight a bunch of babies, and you've got vulnerability to fire. That's so basically, I guess, for the Bandersnatch, have a big build-up for the Bandersnatch and have him be the boss fight. And I guess for the Lenorm, you would want him to be like the main fight, and then afterwards have like some attrition to where the characters are going to really be fearing, because they're like coddling their wounds all the way back up the side of this crag, back up out of the danger zone, if you will. And yeah, short and sweet. Use your environment.
Short and sweet. Use your environment. Yeah, he's not wrong, guys. It's like people prepare the fly spell for a certain reason, and that's one of them for sure. And if people don't have it, then they can fall. That actually happened to us not too terribly long ago over at the Inn of Planar Crossroads as we were trying to get through the end of I don't want to spoil this. At the end of one of the books in Rise of the Rune Lords, there is a scenario where people can fall a lot, and fall a lot we did. And we spent, that's like the whole encounter is just, we need to get up there. The wizard is bogarting the fly spell. Okay, we're going to just hoof it up there, and I think everyone with a bow should have a grappling arrow. I've learned that one the hard way a couple times, and now it's just like, that's my mantra. Am I an archer? Grappling arrow. And it's not hard to just I'm going to cut that rope that has no hardness and like 4 hit points. Oops!
Yeah, especially when you're a dragon, they can just mosey on up there.
Or just like mage hand it off.
Tommy, I think in ultimate equipment there are mountain picks that you could use to climb with.
That is true. The pythons, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the pythons, or what would be mountain picks or something. There's the item in one of the books that function like mountain climbing picks.
Yeah, I know those existed. I remember, I think it was Greg brought it up that we should add pythons, and I'm really trying not to spoil Rune Lords.
Of town.
Sheehan and Magpie both.
But
it's like the thing that we were climbing, and I'm not trying to spoil anything, but it did look like you could put a pipe in it without just taking the whole thing down. I'm still very surprised we didn't over the course of that whole thing.
Well, you guys did talk about burning it afterwards.
We did. Actually, that's actually probably a CR13 fight, is that encounter. That whole thing is probably well above. It's supposed to be CR9. We went through it at level 6, and there was crit shenanigans that got us through it. But no, the thing at the top is real bad. But we're not here to discuss Rise of the Rune Lords. That's tomorrow around this time. So, Donald, take us on, buddy.
The 2 monsters that I'd be covering, it would be the 2 I covered from last week, the Glabrezu and the Veil Master. Both of them, if you're going to be using them properly, it is important to use the environment and the mooks properly to show their abilities properly. So the best way I would use a Glabrezu is to have a bunch of weaker demon minions to keep the party occupied, while the Glabrezu uses its teleport ability to go around and try to ruin everyone's day. Being a demon, it have relatively good will save, fortune save, a good amount of hit points, and AC, while terrible reflex save and normal immunities and DR a demon would have. This creature, if it does get in front of a caster, it's going to be doing a lot of damage to it. 2d8 plus 10, and that's 2 pincers, and then 2 claws, 1d6 plus 10. That's a lot of damage, and then bite as well. So casters probably would be dead in maybe 2 to 3 turns potentially without proper preparation. And then the at-will spells, if you use them properly, Chaos Hammer is great for lawful characters, Confusion, Dispel Magic, Mirror Image, Reverse Gravity, especially for party members who have not prepared to counter that, Greater Teleport, and then once per day, Power Word Stun based upon the party hit points. That can be quite the game changer. And if more mooks die, he can just summon more using his summon monster ability. It have a bunch of nice feats: Cleave, Greater Cleave, Improve Critical, Power Attack, Vital Strike. So the big tanky guy in the party, he thinks he can take a lot of damage. This monster, if it hits him on a natural 20, that's going to be a lot of damage, especially if you use Vital Strike. With a lot of outsiders after a certain CR, they get telepathy up to 100 feet or more. So that is one way for the big boss monster, which would be the Glabrezu, to order his mooks around. And then the Veil Master, based upon the party composition and how you would use them as the NPC in a campaign, you can easily just switch the spells around to make the encounter quite the challenge. So instead of the default spells a Veilmaster would have, change those spells up to counter what the party would have normally. The Veilmaster, if you are going to be using him, it is best to use it in a water theme environment, especially if you can actually make the water environment hard to move in, especially if you want to use magical darkness there to hinder the party sight. By this point, the casters should begin to get access to True Sight, if I remember. The ability that the Veilmaster, if you use it properly, delay suggestion. If you use this properly, this can easily cause chaos among the party members, especially the party members who have a bad will save. You dominate the dumb barbarian, and he begins attacking his party members. That's going to change the challenge rating by a bit, especially if the barbarian is in rage. That's a lot of damage right there. Mucus Cloud, which is pretty nice if you do use it. They can only breathe water for 24 hours, so that can hinder the quest timeline in a way if you use it properly. Rune Mastery, which is quite nice if you want to use additional spells potentially, and then Slime. If you hit a party member with this, their fortitude score go down a bit. So if you do this enough time, that's going to hinder most of the party fortitude saves, and eventually they're going to begin failing a lot of their fortitude saves, especially if you prepare a lot of spells that require fortitude save. Most of the time, the party is going to fail those saves most of the time, unless if you're using a higher point buy for party stats creation. 15 to 20 point buy with the default spell DC that the Veilmaster have, with a bad fortitude save, they will fail their save most of the time. And one of these spells which I'm beginning to enjoy more, just thinking how I could potentially use it, is a Touch of Idiocy, as it at a second level spell. So casters, if they meet the Veilmaster and it choose to get up close and personal with you, combined with Bestow Curse or any mental stat draining spells, casters are going to have a bad day. So yes, both of these monsters in the right environment with the right mooks and tactics, they're quite deadly by themselves, potentially.
Unmute Mike. Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. And I definitely like, again, a lot of the monsters that came up this week are just like damn good. And yeah, I knew the Veiled Master existed. I knew it was like King of the Aboleths or whatever, but I'd never really like read into it. Delayed Suggestion is a like adventure all of its own. That's
Is the Veilmaster, it's best to use it as a villain, so you can put thoughts into the party members and then just activate them when the time comes. So,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like I don't support keeping the players on the rails. That's no fun. I'm giving away. I'm gonna run an adventure for like 6 people, and it's gonna be a published Paizo thing. But that by no means means we're gonna be on the rails. But if you want to be on the rails, that's how you do it right there. Just get the Veiled Master, and you will go and complete the main quest. Okay.
Well, I mean, we thought these guys, when I said it last time, like these guys are like Nyarlathotep right up the alley. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. Aboleths are super mean.
The lore around Aboleths, I actually just like them just for their monster lore. How you can actually use them just as a NPC in the background without actually needing to put much effort how to use all of these spells. As long as you know what type of CR they are, you can easily come up with a number for the spell DC, roughly.
Yeah, for sure. We are like 2 minutes. We barely squeaked it under time this time. We got through everybody. It's because there's only 4 of us this time instead of like 17. But I guess last words, anybody? I guess, well, I do have one. I guess a quick honorable mention would be the Sepid Div at CR 14. There's nothing really special about him, but like he's damn good at what he does. He's just like, he's kind of like the full loadout. I kind of imagine like the trolls in Lord of the Rings if they could cast and had brains. Well, they have brains. Didn't have poopy brains, I'll say. Like it just has everything you want your like big guy smash you to have. And it's just like I used it in Lord of the Caliber, and I definitely like I didn't play that encounter to the hilt, and rarely do. Sometimes I do, but a lot of times, like if I'm gonna bring in something real big and scary against a party that's not quite like leveled enough to fight it, it's a little more cinematic, a little less like I'm gonna expend all my resources at you. But like if you want to do that, it has all the resources for sure.
2 honorable mentions that I would like to briefly cover. It is the Living Rune, a CR13 monster. If you use it right in a dungeon, that can cause a good amount of mayhem to the party, not expecting runes to hurt them. And the Lang spider.
Yeah,
both of those
spiders are a thing for sure.
Both of those are fun monsters to use in their own environments.
When in doubt, attack the party with a spider that can make a flail from its own webs or a bolus from its own webs and remind them that Trip is powerful.
Oh, yeah. Don't have to remind me Trip's powerful. My group only took out a bugbear with Trip falling down the stairs.
Down the stairs. Real good. Especially at those levels. But we are at time, so I guess now's a good time as any before we get down to Rambletown, as we always do, to wrap it up. Again, we are 4 days into a really big giveaway at Black Dragon Gaming. If you'd like to see us run as soon as it drops, pretty much, the playtest adventure Doomsday Dawn, our Patreon right now on Tuesday at 8 p.m. sits at $37 a month. Get me to around $150. We can definitely do it. It'll be a whole lot of fun, and it'll be, I won't say it'll be on Black Dragon Gaming first, because it may not be, but it's probably going to be among the first, Pathfinder 2nd Edition content on YouTube, if we can get there, and that's a milestone that I'm really excited for, if for no other reason than this adventure path is really important to me, because the Minion of the Black is cool, but I digress.
Yep.
Be sure to like and subscribe both of our channels for more content. Be sure to even go hit up Adam. Go hit up Adam's Patreon. His videos are way nicer looking than mine pretty much all the time. Help that dude out. And we will see you next time. Kane's not here to play me off.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.